Today I'm going to speak to you about blame. And you already know from past videos that I've done, and please by all means go to my YouTube channel and subscribe if you feel moved to do so. There's a repository of information on these types of subjects to support you in your own journey of becoming more aware of yourself, connecting you to you. But one part of that journey for me, and I'll share my own aspect of this story with you, is in relation to blame, which was something that I found myself doing a lot in my life. And then finally, I really noticed it in my last marriage, and I was making myself extremely unhappy with it. And I do appreciate that when I say this to you, that you might be thinking, well, how can I let go of this? Because that person or this person is wrong and what they're doing is hurting me. So I'm going to talk about that. So there I was in my third marriage, and I had this story I told myself about myself from my childhood, and frequently one defense mechanism of mine was to blame either myself for not being in some way good enough or not being able to change in order to meet these circumstances better with more patience, with more understanding, or whatever I thought was required, or in fact to turn that on my then husband and blame him for things he was doing that I felt were making me really unhappy. And so it also coincided with a general raising of my own awareness, let's say, a raising of my consciousness. And I was doing a lot of thinking about things and looking at things from different angles, which is always a really great thing to do if you're stuck in a pattern, is to try and see it from even an unconventional perspective. And that unconventional perspective for me included asking myself this one question. It was in my mind over many, many weeks, which is, what if he's not wrong? And that is the truth, actually. It's not really about right or wrong. Now, it looks like that in modern relationship. Wisdom would have us believe, of course, that there is a right way and a wrong way of doing things. But if we can just release ourselves from that for the time being, there's something very empowering that you can do for yourself. Okay, so your happiness and your choices are in your own hands, whatever it looks like to you. You create the life that you currently live based on what you hold in terms of your thoughts and emotions. And so what I started doing was looking at things differently, and that what if he's wrong became like a very powerful way of reflecting back to me what I was feeling, because underneath the blame there was other emotions, and there always are emotions like not good enough or feeling not heard or not connected to. There was a lot lurking underneath that. And as I turned it on myself, I realized, with no blame, no judgment, just actually wide open eyes, that there was a tremendous amount of emotion that I was carrying there. And so I started to connect that emotion to my original story. And what happened was I realized, obviously, the very thing that I'm always talking about is that there were emotions from my early life that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And so each time those emotions were then triggered, as I've spoken about many times, I would meet them and I would find that they would disperse, but something else happened. Without the need now to blame as a defense mechanism, I realized that I could actually change my life, and I did. And not through setting about trying to make change, but rather just as a consequence of accepting what already was. And so there was this great peace that settled on my life and in the lives of my family as I did this. So I'd like to suggest to you that you do have a choice around blame, and that you always have a choice as to what you feel and what you think. And that alone can bring about change, especially if you're not trying to suppress something in order to make change. And so it's very important that you understand change is simply a consequence. It's not something that you try and make, because if you try and make it, it comes from a lack of acceptance. And so that's a kind of suppression. So I advise you, if you would like to be able to understand yourself better, try asking yourself the question, what if he or she is not wrong? What does that do within you? I will tell you, it creates a revolution. And if you do the same thing for your own emotions in relation to blame, so where you blame yourself, for example, well, what if you're not wrong? What if there's something else that you're trying to tell yourself? Invariably, there is. And so that was a liberation for me. It totally changed my life, and I didn't have any idea where that would take me. But to this day, it's given me the ability to spot it in others very quickly because I've lived it. I've walked this path myself, and consequently, I have literally changed the story that I tell myself about myself. And so even events that I thought were very fixed in my childhood, I see with different eyes. And it's not like putting on rose-tinted spectacles and suddenly everything that you saw as terrible is all lovely. It's not so polarized. These were merely circumstances with which I kind of sharpened the stone of my awareness, if you will. And so they're neither good nor bad. But I can say that from that, I have a tremendous peace in relation to the events of growing up. And so that peace has cast itself into my life and it goes forward. And I find that I don't seek the same drama. I'm not drawn to it. I don't have any desire to blame others, nor do I have a desire to blame myself. I do love meeting myself, though, at every opportunity. And what is revealed is truly fascinating. So I encourage you on your journey because the liberation is, it's a fantastic thing when you've been carrying that heaviness with you to not have to carry it anymore. And you don't have to.